Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Blue Abroad YouTube channel with another episode of The Rest. I'm your host, Aris Stamatakos, and I'm not joined by Mr. Terry Degani today. I'm joined by late substitute, late withdrawal Terry. In comes Mr. Pom. Pommy, how are you?
Yeah, T. Degani out life in Pom. So I'm very well, mate. I'm excited to be on this first time here. It's my debut.
There you go. I had my debut on Monday. You're having your debut on today, so good stuff. Good stuff. Now, what are your? I want to start. Let's get this started right now. I just want to get question without notice. If you could have one sentence to sum up the AFL season so far, what would it be? Just every storyline, everything that's happened, what would it be?
More confused than Scooby-Doo.
There you go. Perfect. I think that is that is poetic. I feel like you couldn't have summed it up any better. But I'm assuming that's in reference to the umpiring and all that.
Well, I think it's everything because you get that shock result, don't you, as well? Like just when
Yeah,
you
true.
think you understand the game and you do your tipping and you're like, oh, I've got a big fat 9 there.
Yeah.
You're a team that you didn't expect, like Port Adelaide this week just gone, just out of nowhere, suddenly became the Port of 2 years ago and strung 2 quarters together when they couldn't kick a ball 2 weeks before. It's everything from that to umpiring to the rule changes, interpretation. It just seems different every week. You just don't seem to know what you're getting anymore.
Yeah, I think it's good. I love it. I feel like every week's different.
It's good.
Nothing streamlined. It's perfect.
It's good. Chaos is good chaos sometimes.
Oh, unless you're David Teague, that just structure for God's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's start and with the first talking points. And it happened I think it happened last week. It was really brought to everyone's attention. But it is Channel 10 and Paramount's joint bid for the AFL rights. Now, what were your initial thoughts when you became aware of this?
Well, I like Paramount's involvement. I really do in a way. And I think what we have seen, like you've got Stan, they've got into sport. And what you've seen with Stan, I've been following their Europa coverage because obviously the Mighty Rangers are going to win that one.
Yeah.
What I have noticed over Optus is they've added the ingredients that probably Optus have lost, and that's they go into some analytics. They've brought back what people watch football for, where I think Optus have gone with that more American model of a bit like what we're accustomed to on Fox Footy, where at halftime we get no analytics, no what's going on in the game. We get really half-assed sitcom type chat show environment, which doesn't appeal to me. I want to hear about the sport. So I think it's good. I think competition's good. And Channel 10, I think they don't do a bad job with sport. I do think maybe it's time for a change. I do feel like since I've been here, it's stagnated a bit. There's not much different about how you watch it on the TV. It's got very glitzy and glamoury, but I don't think the sandwich filling has changed much.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are complaining about the coverage in terms of the commentary and the halftime and the pre-game stuff. For me, Channel 10 obviously had the rights previously in like the early 2000s all the way up to maybe 2010, around that time. And by all reports, I speak to a lot of people who are older than me and watch the game with the Channel 10 rights, and they loved it. So I feel like if they go from 7 to 10, that could be a tick, presuming that 10 do make the correct like moves forward in terms of broadcast and analytics and making sure that the broadcast is good and like to standard that we all want. It's the Paramount bit that I'm not overly keen on purely because of how they treat the A-League. Now, I know it's different sports, and I know the AFL is 10 times more important to a lot of people in this country than the A-League, but their A-League broadcast and their care for the game and the league has been below par for me. Have you noticed that? Have you being able to
I
catch
did
some early
watch
games
some
of
of the A League, and it did feel like it was AFLW coverage, doesn't it? It
Yes,
felt, and what I mean by that is it was kind of like we've got it here for the sake of it here, but we're not really going to put much effort or energy into it. We're
yeah,
just going to do it and go through the motions. I hear what you're saying, and I think you're spot on, Ari. I mean, I subscribe to David Sullivan approach with West Ham, and he famously said when they moved from Upton Park and said, "How do you think the old members are going to feel?" And he said, "They're forced to like us. They were born with us. It's a modern day sport, and it's about getting the young kids through the door, so they become them old guys that we forget about." And that might sound harsh. I do like these streaming services coming in because I think AFL particularly is stuck in the 80s, 90s, and it's because we've always done it this way, and
yeah,
that's how we are. For us to get the markets and to get the revenue, we have to go overseas, America, China, Europe. And I think the big part of that is the whole package. If you look at the UK with NFL content and NBA, one of the fastest growing watch sports in the UK, their coverage is excellent. You've got literally, if you watch NFL, you get everything. And it's
yeah,
one of the most boringest sports in the world. But from an analytical and from a watching point of view, they explain everything. It looks good. It's fast paced. It's high
yeah,
energy. So I think it needs to be updated,
yeah,
and hopefully they get a good product.
yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Because with the Paramount and Channel 10 could joined bid, I assume it would be Channel 10 would be your Channel 7, whereas Paramount would be your Fox Footy or your KO. So it's like you'd have your Saturday 110 games on Paramount, for example. I just hope that it's given the treatment that it deserves because for me, there's nothing better than on a Saturday going all the way from 110 to 7:30 at night, watching every single game back to back to back, where there's pretty much broadcast throughout. There's very rarely like breaks in between games or stuff. They just go all the way through, and I love that. Right, so there's that aspect of it, and then there's also the streaming service aspect of it. Do you see a world? And I think I spoke about this with Terry a couple of episodes back. Do you see a world in which there is an AFL TV type thing brought out where they show every game on there, and then there's like a tab for each team where they show analytics, they show highlights, mini matches, etc. Do you think that that's on the horizon potentially?
Has to be. I mean, Australia is a super progressive country. It's technically the Western world, but it's so far behind when you look at AFL. And when
Yeah,
you look at Fox Footy and you watch all the shows they've got, they're all the same shows. Like on the couch, like even Front Bar is basically on the couch or any Fox Footy show, but with non-footballers having a crack. And I think it becomes very sitcom-y
yeah,
where you look at the EPL model, they have YouTubers now involved because people relate to them because they're real people. They
yeah,
have professional footballers on who aren't archaic professional footballers. They're recently retired, giving in-depth analytical views. Then they have professional analysts. You People nowadays, the modern day generation, they don't want the cake. They want the start of the main course and then the cake. They
yeah.
want it all. And I think AFL misses out because it's such a complex sport. So I hope this Paramount Channel 10 joint bid is somewhere along the lines of that, where they're like, we're going to have a bit of entertainment, like your Soccer AM in the UK, where they've got two hosts and they make a bit of a comedic thing out of it with a bit of seriousness. And I think you're right. I think the AFL having its own TV is a logical step. 7 days, 24 hours a day, football, the classics, you've got entertainment. There's so much they could do. Like, when have we seen an AFL kids show? Like, I grew up with soccer teams, and it
Yeah,
was basically a kids show with pros coming on, doing soccer challenges, teaching me to send my results in. Why doesn't the AFL do that? It's a market.
yeah. I think you mentioned the word archaic. I feel like that's a perfect word to describe the broadcaster of the sport, and like touching on like the maybe not the games itself, but like the shows. There is, I feel like there is such an appetite for like a front bar type show, which is more comedic based, where they get like ex players on and they tell stories and stuff. There's definitely a market there, and then you have probably On the Couch is the most analytical show that we've got, And even still, that is touch and go in terms of how in depth they go, right? On occasion. So there is a market for everything. I feel like they just need one platform to show it. And if they start to engage with what we're doing here and what other YouTube channels are, like the pair and stuff, getting fans on who can give their raw opinions and raw thoughts on their team or on the league, I feel like that is the step forward. I feel like sticking with what's worked in the past isn't going to work anymore. Because if you look at the 80s and 90s coverage, it was literally 10-minute pre-game, the game, 10-minute post-game with some interviews, and then you have like the Sunday, like a show on Sunday, which I show all the highlights. Whereas now everyone wants that full package. They want everything. So hopefully they can cater to everyone's needs.
Mate, spot on. I mean, I am always surprised. The biggest TV show in the UK, and every kid who's British will remember this, since 1968, Sunday night, the games are finished, 8 o'clock, match of the day. It's an hour-long show, 10 minutes of each game, a little bit of analytics, straight on to the next game. There'd be a 20-minute game for the featured game that showed the highlights, the chat about it, and then for the 4 crap games, be a 5-minute segment of the goals and what went on. Can't believe we don't have that in the AFL. Like, I can't believe at 10 o'clock at night we don't have AFL Roundup of the week with actual long highlights that they release on their YouTube website. But then we have a little bit of analytics. And for some people, they're not like you and me, sad and watch every game. Some people, they'll want to keep up to date with it and have that 5-7 minutes of intellectual talk about it to know what clubs are doing. And I just think it's an opportunity missed.
Yeah. And you need to get respected people to do that. Analytics, right? Because I know Gary Lineker is the host of Match of the Day, or at least he was. He's extremely well respected, and then you have like Alan Shearer and Ian Wright as well. These guys who are really well liked by the English public in terms of what they offer from an analytical perspective. You need to have that same thing happening over here, because if you just get fucking Luke Darcy and Cameron Ling, like, with all due respect to them, they're not the highest esteem. So you need to get the proper guys or girls doing it. Because I know, for example, Daisy Pearce, one of the best special comments in the game. I would love to hear her speak about a game for 5-10 minutes and really give a rehearsed and detailed analysis on games. I think it'd be fantastic.
No, I'm spot on. And I think you've got the people here, like Daisy Pearce. She's very intelligent. She talks about the game in a very, very, I think, a very personable way as well. She doesn't go into the technicalities of, I'm a former professional, I know more than you. She uses common everyday words. And then you could have someone like Daisy Thomas. Like, you look at Micah Richards on Gillette Soccer Saturday. The guy's a clown. He knows what he's on about, though. But he adds that comedic value, which then breaks someone like maybe a Dermot Brereton, who can be quite serious. But that Roy Keane, Micah Richards is everyone's favourite thing to see, because Micah takes the piss so much that you see Roy Keane come out of his shell and have a laugh, which I've never seen Roy Keane laugh until he broke Alf-Inge Haaland's knee. So
there you go. Yeah. So you need that chemistry. You need to have 3-4 people who like working with each other. And I think that's why shows like The Front Bar, for example, are so popular, because you have the 3 panelists who quite clearly enjoy what they're doing and quite clearly enjoy one another's company. So there's a lot of variables that hopefully can be addressed if this bid were to go through. And even if it didn't, I would love Fox Footy to have a show like that on a Sunday night where I know they're trying to implement something like that, but like you said, it is more talk show type. It is more like 3 blokes around the table, whereas I want to see like highlights and then analyzing the highlights in depthly, and goes for an hour 15, and then we can go to bed. So that would be my dream. Hopefully, whether it's 7 Fox or 10 or even Paramount, hopefully that it can be implemented sooner rather than later.
No, spot on, mate. I agree.
All right, let's move on and let's get into a bit of analytics ourselves, or let's analyze something ourselves. Obviously, I think it's undisputed that Melbourne are the best team in the comp. I think that's undeniable, right? And a near undeniable second seed is Brisbane. Now, can Brisbane challenge Melbourne? Can they push them to the limit and potentially take that number 1 spot off them in the near future?
I think the way that our league works is that it's a marathon finished off with a sprint, which I think makes it really hard because just being good in the year effectively means nothing if you're a good final side. And I think Brisbane have got a bit of the doggies about them when they won the flag. That their game style, I think, would be a nightmare in finals when you know that it's one game and that's all that counts. And I think that's why Geelong have always fallen off. I watched Geelong and they don't have a second gear. It's a good game for a marathon. It racks points up, but I think head to head, I don't think they have that gear where you can kick in clusters. I think if both of these guys meet in a grand final, I think it's the final we hope the Doggies Melbourne would be, where I think the Doggies were overawed when Melbourne went to that gear. I think Brisbane can stand there and take a few punches. It's got a bit of Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder about this, where I think Brisbane have got a puncher's chance, but Melbourne can control the game and beat them. But I think in next year, I reckon Brisbane could be on par.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect comparison because you have Melbourne, that team that just controls games. That never, even when they're losing or even when the team is giving it their best shot, they never look like losing. I mean, you saw in the Hawthorn game, Hawthorn gave it everything, and Melbourne just looked to be in cruise control. And then you have Brisbane, you have this slightly manic in a sense, but exciting brand of football, high scoring. You've got Joe Danaher, full forward who polarizing, kicks more behinds than goals sometimes. And then you have your Zach Bailey's, Cam Rayner's, Charlie Cameron's. It's a very good comparison, and I think Brisbane perhaps more entertaining. I think you could say that, but I think Melbourne they're just so good. Like it's almost boring to watch. It's kind of like Pep Guardiola and Manchester City. They're just so good. And it's just like, all right, well, there's no point watching because it's not overly exciting, yet they're going to lose one in every 100 games.
It's a great analogy because the other analogy I was going to go with is it gives me that Fergie versus Pep's Barcelona European final type feeling where it's the old mentality that Brisbane play, that chaos ball, that quick. And that's what a lot of people think is modern day football, where Melbourne are very Pep based. They like to control it. It's on their terms. They work on that philosophy of you can't score if we've got the ball. But like a Pep side, they have the ability to be 2-0 down and score 3. They also have that gear that they don't have to go to very often, but if they need goals, they can do it. And I think it's a great point you make there. And I think that Melbourne are that. Funny enough, I know I might be skipping ahead, but I think their closest competitors are actually not talked about. And I think Fremantle are building, they're almost like Arsenal. It's Longmuir's a bit like Arteta. He's building a copycat brand where cement the back line last year. Now they're adding the midfield layer. Once that forward line gets going, I reckon they're on par with any side in the comp because I think for me, Fremantle are one of the most exciting sides to watch their development. But to answer your question, I think Brisbane have got that ability, though. They can hurt you. And I think if Brisbane get the jump and you can get Melbourne into second and third gear quickly, that's why they're so good. They can hold on to that fourth and fifth gear till 10 minutes to go and then still have energy. You want that to come out early.
I feel like Melbourne like to be comfortable. I feel like if you can challenge them and challenge them early, like what the Hawks did, I just feel like the Hawks didn't have that quality. If a team with maybe like a Sydney or even a Brisbane, Fremantle, if they challenge them quickly and they get a good start, kick a couple of goals quickly in the first quarter, make Melbourne think about the game a lot more. I feel like Melbourne don't have a conscious thought of what they're doing. They're just so well drilled that they ping passes around and they know what they're doing, kick goals, right? It comes second nature to them. If you make them think, if you make them doubt themselves, I feel like that's the avenue for success. And I think Brisbane are the archetypal team for that because of that manic pressure, that manic just hell for leather ball movement that they can go to, and that fifth, sixth gear, which we saw on the weekend against Sydney. When they were challenged, they went into fifth gear and stormed the game and broke the game wide open, right? So I feel like I'm not sure when they meet. I'm not sure when they verse each other, but I feel like it might be a grand final preview. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I think these two teams will be up there. I think the only team that can potentially, what I've seen this year, could merit it is Sydney, and I think that's because their ability to kick in clusters very quickly is, like you say. And I think the only team that's beaten them this year in 2022 is us. And you said something brilliant. I thought Melbourne cruise control. They remind me of Federer, that everything looks so easy.
Yeah.
And one guy that used to beat Federer was Nadal, and Carlton were Nadal. They came out of the blocks strong, and then they just chased everything down. They made it hard, made it real hard. And that's really, I think that's probably Carlton's best performance all year, was the Melbourne game, because we just didn't stop running. We looked like the ravaged dog. It was that Nadal thing, chased everything down. There was no easy gets. So I think that's probably the mantra. Having said that, I think Carlton probably will be there very quickly as well. I think we'll be there in about 2 or 3 years. So Melbourne definitely head and shoulders. It doesn't take long for teams to catch up, but that is the new style. Control.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And you mentioned Fremantle not long ago. I had down on the run sheet who's more likely to win a flag first, St Kilda or Fremantle. Now, this was written prior to the game in Cairns, but I think now it's, based on the weekend's results, it's undisputed Fremantle are just that step ahead of St Kilda at the moment.
Absolute brilliant when you watch Fremantle. I mean, he's done a wonderful job as Longmuir. Since he's been there, he's built the backline. Backline is stable. Midfield now, no Nat Fife. Then, I mean, you take Mundy out of that midfield, it's like 12 years old.
Yeah.
They're dominant, that midfield. Dominant.
And they had Cherish stripped from them last year, which just shows that everyone's taken that level up.
And you look, when you look at their forward line, it's a weird thing. You look at it and you kind of laugh at it. You're like, Matt Taberner, who's he?
Rory Lobb.
Yeah, I'd never heard of him. You know what I mean? I mean, Rory Lobb, he looks like Marty McFly's dad. Like, it's a weird thing. But Fremantle, honestly, the old saying, isn't it? Championships are built from the back. You've started to see it. Melbourne did the same. Fremantle now are doing it, adding that layer. But St Kilda, to be fair, they're a side I wouldn't want to play. If I was Carlton, when we make the 8, the team I don't want is St Kilda, because I think Ratton's style is finals style. It's manic. It's one way. Like, there's somewhere between Voss first 4 rounds and Ratton last 4 rounds is the perfect style of football, because they only have one gear, and that's go, 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 go. Be a nightmare to play that in finals.
Yeah, and they have those difference makers. I mean, you look at Max King. I feel like if Max King is in that Fremantle forward line, he would probably have the Coleman sewed up by now, you'd think, because when he gets those levers up, it's no defender in the comp can stop him when he's on a roll. It's just, I mean, we saw in that last quarter against Richmond not long ago how he can tear a game apart. It's just that inconsistency. He's kicked a lot of behinds. I think he kicked 1 goal 7 a couple of weeks back. So if he can find that goal, if he can nail down that goal kicking and even get it to like 50%, he will be deadly, like a deadly player for St Kilda. And that's where they need to build their future around, and that's where their game plan that's the focal point.
Oh, I mean, when you've got a player like him, you've got only look at Carlton last year, Harry Mackay, when he is where Max King wants to be in that level of consistency. But they're so hard, and like, to be fair to Harry, our results last year were probably largely down to Harry. You're always in with a shot with that guy. And Max has got the same ability, his ability to take marks in unthinkable situations. Gibcus and Gibcus and Grimes were on him, and he was just taking the piss at times, Max King. So Max King's got that ability to take it on your 2 keys. So I agree with you. I think, but I rate St Kilda probably because my wife's a fan of them. I don't mind St Kilda, I've got to say, but I do think Freo will win it first, but I do think St Kilda will be the team I'd want to avoid in the finals, because I think they play finals football.
Yeah, I agree. And just to pose a question, which I mentioned on just before, if Max King was in that Fremantle forward line, does that make Freo one of the best teams in the comp based off form? If he was there,
I think they lack a real. As good as Matt Taberner has been, I think it's a little bit like Levi Casbolt at Carlton in 2016. Yeah. He's kind of there because that's who he is. Yeah. I think if they had an elite key forward and you play Taberner with him, I think that's pretty much the final jigsaw piece, to be fair.
Yeah. Is there one that potentially in the off season that they could go after? Are you aware if there's any out of contracts or?
Well, I mean, if I was them and I couldn't get any, I mean, next year's draft is littered with key position players, thankfully for them. But I mean, I'd have a sniff at Jack Darling.
Yeah, maybe potentially.
They're going to separate. Darling's settled. He is a Perth boy. I'd probably have a look at him and saying, look, if I can play these two together, that allows Robbie Lobb to float. Darcy's an amazing ruckman. Then we can play that third tall. Suddenly, I think that's a different avenue. And I think they're very dangerous then. I think they're very dangerous. I mean, maybe have a look at Lukosia's probably is going to be impossible to get there, but he'd fit the bill. Ben King, he's basically Audi Max. But I'd say Jack Darling would be the one I'd go for. And Freo and West Coast always draft internally in Perth, so they know these players. A lot of good kids coming through in WA next year, some tall players. Grab one, build Jack Darling for a year, win a flag.
There you go. I feel like Freo and St Kilda are going to be. I think they might go deep. I think both of them will go deep. I definitely think Freo will, especially if they can get their hands on a home final. Would you almost say they'd rather finish 5th than 4th because of that home final advantage they'd get?
Yeah, and I don't think they'd fear eliminations, especially out there. Yeah. I think Optus is a strong ground. And I mean, I will guarantee this, by 2030, you will have seen 2 grand finals with Carlton and Fremantle.
That's going to be exciting. Hopefully it doesn't end the same way. That
it'll be us. We'll batter them, but
yeah, Harry will kick 8. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, Harry will kick 8 because they won't have got Jack Darling.
Yeah, and Matt Taberner will have no touches, just like I predicted last time we filmed this. So I think that's enough for that. Now I want to move to something that again was brought to everyone's attention last week, and that was the man with the pulse on football topics, Kevin Sheedy. He made a conversation starter about a potential expansion team, and he said that Newcastle does, along the lines of Newcastle deserve a AFL team before Tasmania. Now, Pom, as a person who wasn't born here, do you actually know where Newcastle is?
New South Wales, isn't it?
Yeah, that's good enough. Good enough.
Geography, look at that, Pom. Bit of geography.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll start this off. I think that's ridiculous. I think because you have Sydney, 2 teams in Sydney who one's a Melbourne-based team in South Melbourne, now Sydney, and then the GWS who get 3 people every game, right? So to think that regional town Newcastle deserve a team more than established AFL or established football state Tasmania is ridiculous. I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was so bizarre.
I mean, Kevin Sheedy, if his hand is on the pulse, I'm guessing it's flatlining. But I mean, I always think this is a weird thing. I can't believe there isn't a team in Tasmania because, I mean, you've got the Newcastle Knights in there, and I think every time I've watched one of their games on TV, there's just the same man and his dog watching it. So there can't be many people wanting to watch it. I don't think it's well followed in New South Wales anyway. And just looking at Carlton, one of the best groups in Carlton is Tasmania. Michael Howell's a big guy down there and wonderful representation there. And then you look at the Jumping Jacks, quality name about the NBL. You look at the rugby, you look at the cricket team, Hobart Hurricanes, packed venues, man. And them guys follow it. Guys and girls in Tasmania, they're manic for their sport. Do you know what I mean? Everyone turns out. Even when you looked at when the women played over there as well, there was a lot of people go out there. They love sport. So for me, the fact that there isn't a team in Tasmania already, and we've got, 2 in Queensland. Gold Coast is God's waiting room, isn't it? Or a place that people go for schoolies. That's it. Yeah. That's what Gold Coast is.
Literally.
Tasmania should be there. And you look at North Melbourne, look at the way they're acting because Jason Horn-Francis is upset. He's got too many names that fit in a surname box. Why aren't they pissed off to Tasmania? Like, honestly, like, piss the roos off to Tasmania ASAP and we can have Melbourne back. Like, honestly, needs to be Tasmania. And if it's not, there's a big problem because they deserve a football team. They really do deserve a football team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you just look at some of the players. I mean, the revolts come out of there, and then you have so many others who are actively campaigning for a team there. They've got a couple of grounds, obviously Hobart, Launceston, two grounds that provide maybe you'd want a proper stadium there if it's going to be the only team there. But to start off, no problem with either of those two grounds. Obviously, the fan base is there. I feel like if they get the support, which they'll definitely get, that could be a real exciting club. Now, if they are in the league, would you? I know you just said that you'd relocate north.
That was just a joke to wind them up.
Yeah. Would you have just Tasmania, or would you have another team as well to make it 20 teams?
I think logically we have 22, 23 rounds, which makes no sense to me when you've got 18 teams. I'd give Patrick Dangerfield what he wants, and I would have two teams. I would have Tasmania, call them whatever you want. The Tasmanian Devils is logical. And then the mecca of football, the Australian equivalent of East London in the terms of soccer is Northern Territories. Why doesn't Northern Territories have a league? You watch the Northern Territory State League, absolute mecca of talent, wonderful football history. Okay, not many people are there, but they're manic about their football as well. So you would get a real loyal fan base. What GWS struggle with in Gold Coast is no one cares. Do you know what I mean? Where Tasmania manic about their sport, Northern Territory's manic about their sport, and a rich football history as well. That the blood runs football over there. So I think that's logical. Then you've got 20 teams. That's a 19-round season. Do you know what I mean? Which then I think opens it up in the terms of games. It makes more sense. Easier to fixture as well. A lot easier to fixture, so you haven't got obscure fixtures. Everyone plays each other once. Do you know what I mean? You could maybe have 20 rounds and have a rivalry round where rivals play and create a bit of heritage that way. But I think they're the two places for me. I'd love to see a Northern Territory side with an Indigenous coach as well. I think that would be really beautiful as well to have that. And Alistair Clarkson can piss off back to Tasmania, can't he, and coach them.
There you go. Now, just to play devil's advocate here, just for the sake of it, there have been some complaints about the quality of football. Obviously, we saw the game in Cairns. I mean, what was it, like 17, 18 behinds? Anyway, there was a lot of behinds kicked, right? I think 13 and 14, respectively, for the two clubs. Is that an issue? The quality of games historically haven't been great. I know Carlton played Gold Coast in the Northern Territory in 2020, and that game wasn't exceptional in terms of the quality. Would that be a worry for you, or would you be like, just give them a team, who cares, it's part of the game?
Well, I think there was that game, wasn't there, where the Melbourne game where Jetta had his best game. That was an exciting game. It was almost like a South African World Cup game. It was really loud, and I think players will get used to it. You've got to remember that, like 2020 Carlton versus Gold Coast. I mean, that was basically like a battle of two teams that were trying to lose and who could lose more successfully. I think it would be well received. I think that obviously, do you know what I mean? There's the heat thing, but my question is, how protected are we making AFL footballers? Do you know what I mean? Like soccer players, we say soccer's soft, but they play 3 times a week. They'll go to -20 and play in Chechnya, and then 2 weeks later they're playing back home, and then they're going to play Istanbul. Do you know what I mean? In a 7-day period. So I mean, Australia is big, but it's not overseas. Do you know what I mean? Like it can be managed, and I think they'd get used to it. So why not? I'd love to see a Northern Territories team, and I'd love to see a Tasmanian team, and I think that it makes more sense, because I think that if you're trying to market this, which Gill has been to China and America, as a European, we like things simplified. And a lot of things the AFL does make no sense, like the fixturing, where they say, we can't show you the algorithm, but honestly, there is a method behind it. And you're like, the method is Gill blindfolded, spinning 3 times and chucking a dart.
Yeah.
Like, that's the sophisticated system. You could then structure it so it is upfront and on board. And I think everyone's represented then, aren't they, in Australia, which it should be. It's the Australian game.
Yeah, well said, perfect. And I think what you said about there's already the fan base there for both states. I mean, in Gold Coast, that's the place for sport to die in this country, right? I don't think there's been a successful team in any code, any sport that is based up there, right? And then GWS, they are. I know that Western Sydney had a lot of success with Western Sydney Wanderers, but that is a lot more of a European and football based like area. I know some people from there, and they're manic about the Wanderers and even the rugby as well. So I feel like that one has a more potential in terms of the fan base. They just need time for it. Whereas Tasmania and the Northern Territory have made fan bases, love the footy, want a team. I know Tasmania has a ground. I'm not sure what the situation is in the NT, but I'm sure the AFL can conjure something up. So yeah, I think 20 teams, Northern Territory, or 19 teams, Northern Territory, Darwin, and Fold, North Melbourne. What do we think?
Yeah, just get rid of North Melbourne. Fuck them off. I mean, bring
Exactly.
South Melbourne back. Sydney can just be their own.
There we go.
So like in South Melbourne.
There you go. All right, we should be joint AFL presidents, the new ones.
Easy, job done. Fixed. Next problem.
Yeah, done. All right, now let's move on to a slightly more frustrating and serious topic, and it was the leaked report made by the AFL, I'm pretty sure, that detailed the abuse and the conditions in which female umpires at the lower levels have had to face, and even at the higher levels as well. Now, I mean, there's not a lot to say because it is abhorrent what has been found. My frustration was the fact that it was leaked and the fact that the AFL haven't owned it. I thought that showed a lot about what actions speak louder than words. And when they do a report that was meant to be released to the media that wasn't, and then it was now leaked, I think that shows a lot of guilt and the fact that they're ashamed of what has been found in that report.
Spot on. I mean, the AFL for me, I think this can be answered in three folds. I think one, I did see a lot of articles about the abuse that the female referee and umpire got against Carlton and North. I think that sometimes we're very quick to see tweets. I did see a lot of celebrities tweet, look at Carlton pages, it's disgusting, all the sexism. I didn't see anything that was mentioned about females. I mean, I personally slag off every umpire and every traffic warden, whether you're man, woman, or child. Like that's how I am. But I think the thing that needs to be fixed for the AFL, and the AFL need to look deep at themselves, is the AFLW competition, right? And I think how they market that enables sexism, because what you're trying to break now is 100 years of human history where the mindset is girls don't play sport, that's a man thing. So you're going to have a lot of preordained ideas that girls can't do this. And it's a stupid idea, but the quickest way you do it is uniform stuff. So the AFL have to look at their running of the websites. The website looks like a child has made it for the women's. You get 3 stats, goals, behinds, and how many disposals they've had. The men's, you've got over 100 stats you can find at your fingertips. The website looks rubbish. The men's looks amazing. It looks on par with Europe. Then you look at the European competitions, America, the women's football is actually worth more from a commercial standpoint and a revenue income from games than the men's league. And you look, and their website is amazing. You can find everything about it. And then they've got to look at how they market the goals. Watch the AFLW draft. I remember watching it this year, pick 18. I can't find you anything about her, but I've just gone through her Instagram and she's got some poodles. Can you imagine an analyst saying that? Oh, pick 30 odd, Jesse Motlop, don't know much about him, but he's got a podcast. It's ridiculous. And then you sell that they are less to the world. And it's not true. And I'm sure the AFL don't believe that. But for me, when you hang them out like that, so it looks obviously a second-class sport, bigots, people who are stupid, people who want to hate, because we've never done that before. Women don't play football, not in my day. They see that and they see subconsciously it's just done as a token gesture. So for me, abuse to female umpires and male umpires, if it goes across the line, it's uniform wrong. But for me, to improve women's standing in this sport, the AFL need to get Daisy Pearce a role on Fox Footy so she isn't equal, not tucked away doing boundaries. All the girls do boundary reporting over Sunday game in the afternoon. Get them prime time. Then get everything uniform. The women's game is the men's game, just with girls. And then things start to change. Shouldn't be women umpires. It should be umpires if we're going to do it, because it's uniform now. There is no us and them. So I think the AFL have got to look at themselves, and I hope whoever the new chairman is sees we are actively making these women at a disadvantage because we're half-arsing it, which is then playing into the argument women are equal. Sooner we get it on an equal footing cosmetically, the quicker this problem will go away.
Yep. Yeah, hit the nail on the head there. And I think this report is such a microcosm and of the women and how they're represented in the game. Because you look at the AFLW, they played at in a period of time where it's in I know that's changed now, but it was in summer, everyone's watching the cricket and just waiting for the men's to start, and they're just chucking it on for the sake of chucking it on, right? And then even when they do change the fixture, they give them 3 months notice or whatever it is, and despite active public claims and pleads to give them warning or to maybe delay that fixture change for a season to give everyone to give them notice. To see that ignored and to see you had the grand final. I think they are taking small steps in the right direction. You had obviously the prelim, I think it was played at the MCG, and obviously the grand final at Adelaide Oval, both on free to air. I think that is something which Terry or I brought up a couple of episodes back. Get the games on free to air, give them the same coverage, give them the same broadcast as the men. And then that will stem from there. You need to have control over this. You can't have the viewers and the audience make them equal. You need to show everyone, these two men and women equal. It's AFL. It's a sport. It doesn't matter who plays it. Everything is equal. So I think this report has just become a microcosm and a unfriendly and rude reminder that we've got a lot of work to do, and hopefully now it's another kick up the arse the AFL need to get this right, because it's not in this day and age.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, it's simple stuff. Like you watch the TV coverage, AFLW starts 5 minutes before bounce. Do you know what I mean? Men's, we have 30 minutes of Dermot Brereton telling me about how good he was 40 years ago that no one cares about anymore. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, make it uniform for heaven's sake. Like when Daisy retires, get her to lead it and get some of the men panelists on. I'd love to see an ex-male pro on there, because why can't we have a male on there who gives it from that perspective as well? That creates it. You watch the women's soccer, I see Alan Shearer on them shows. I've seen Davy Ginola, I've seen Ian Wright. Ian Wright's a big advocate of the women's game. That creates familiarity for a lot of the men who grew up when I was a kid in the rough areas, who go, women playing sport, good one. Then they suddenly say, oh, hang about, my idol is talking about this. He's been serious. This is serious stuff. Oh, let's see what this is about. So the little things like that go a long way. But until you uniform it, like honestly, anyone watching this, go on the AFLW website and then ask your kid to make a website. And if he's above 11, it'll look better. Like, it's an absolute joke. So the AFL, it leaks it. Is anyone surprised? No, because I think the poor female umpire as well, look at her position and her mistakes she made, right? Them mistakes should have been ironed out in juniors, but they fast-tracked her to rep a senior game so quickly to say we've got a female football umpire. Ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Make sure they're prepared. Make sure they're prepared. And that's the problem with the AFLW and anything women's in AFL at the moment. Prep, the P word. No one's done it. They've just gone, shit, we need 18 teams. Shit, get a 9-month season. Oh, just do it. Where they should taken baby steps and made sure it was nailed. Because the more times you have problems like this, you're going to get people complaining about it and it pushes them away. They deserve from following it so much, at least equal coverage and at least an equal website, at least. Let's start small. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not talking about wages yet. That's just basics. If I should be able to go on now and see how many contested possessions Taylor Harris has had, how many ground ball gets. If I can say that with a touch of a button for the men, why can't I with the women?
Yeah, it's 2 steps forward. It's 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards. Like you said, with the let's get everything done because we need it done. We need it. Like if you're gonna do it properly or don't do it at all. And it's not enough to be down the middle. You can't be like down the middle with this. If we want it to grow, we can't be down the middle. We need to advocate for the game, and we need to really push it and invest in it. We can't just be, oh, sexism is bad. We can't just be that. We need to advocate and actively push it because that's how it's going to grow and that's how it's going to build its foundations. You can't have a competition that has one layer. You need layers and layers and layers to make it sustainable and to make it a league that people want to watch, and people want to watch more than it being just football on before the men's season starts.
Yeah, and I think the simple thing is, and I think the AFLW wastes a lot of time in finding the men, and it is usually men, let's be honest, because I'm a man as well. I can admit it is my sex who poo-poo women in any sport. They're the ones who drag them down. But they spend so much time and energy on outing these people and saying, oh, poor me, this man said this. And they forget about the people that are supporting them. And there's always going to be haters. So what they need to do is focus on the good. And that is the people supporting them and building a better product. And trust me, if you are a young girl out there getting into football, 20 years, all these people will be dead and we'll have normal people. So we'll be in a good world. But until then, let's focus on the good. Do you know what I mean? And that seems to be the AFL's mantra, do you know what I mean, on it, of what we've got as opposed to what it's actually doing. And that's from the LGBTI community to women's football. It's all well and good saying you're doing it, but do it fucking properly. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, you might as well not do it at all. And in my opinion, the AFLW, God bless the women, they work hard. God bless the female umpires, they work bloody hard as well. But the support is bollocks and you're hanging them out to dry. Do you know what I mean? You are actively responsible for them. Get it all done properly is all I ask.
Yeah, you can't leave them. It's like throwing a baby into the deep end and wondering why I can't swim. You need it's a new league. It's a new league, new competition. Help them build the foundations. Like this Australian people and the society, instead of ragging on them for getting however many people to a game or the quality shit or whatever. You're not getting anything out of that except for a few laughs from your mates, right? That's it. Advocate for it because it will make the AFLW better, but it'll make the AFL better in turn. It'll make the competition, it'll make the game better.
And honestly, like I reckon 10, 15 years time, you're going to have an MLS. I can see a world where it is a very marketable thing because Aussies get behind their own. And that's one of the great things about this nation. So the improvement year on year has been huge. And I do expect to see we'll have a female umpire probably this decade of a grand final. I have no doubt will be the lead umpire. I have no doubt that in 8 years' time, Daisy Pearce will be in the AFL Hall of Fame for her services. And I have no doubt that in 10 years' time, girls will be heralded as the superstars as the men are. I don't think it will take long at all. But I just think that the AFL need to give them the base for them to do it.
Yeah, spot on. Perfect. Well, perfectly said. Now, let's finish up with the rest moment of the round. Now, just special shout out to Lewis Shang killing Cameron Zerha. Like, killing him. I think he's still laying on. It was reminiscent of Stocker's bump on my check last year, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm pretty sure that on a cold night he wakes up and shouts out Lewis Young. So I mean, I've got no doubt he remembers him. It was good. It was good. It's good to see. I mean, I'm glad he got let off, because I think that's the beautiful part of this game, that it's tough, first and foremost. No, it's not for everyone, and that's the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah. Now, for those who don't know what the rest moment of the round is, basically every week we'll nominate a moment of the round, and then at the end of the season, the audience will vote for the moment of the season. And I've gone with Josh Kennedy kicking 600 career goals over the weekend. Granted, it was in 109-point thumping, whatever it was on Friday night, but one of the greats, especially the modern era, one of the best forwards in my lifetime. So, yeah, it was good to see him kick 600 goals despite the circumstances that it happened in.
Well, I mean, we got Chris Judd out of it. So, I mean...
Yeah, we won that.
But I still hate him, because anyone who used to be blue and wears another is always an enemy in the where I come from. But fantastic achievement, do you know what I mean? And it puts Buddies a couple of weeks ago into perspective. That Kennedy seems to have been around forever. 600, 1,000. Do you know what I mean? It's an insane number, isn't it? It's a lot of goals.
Yes, it was. And he's been around forever, and he's been consistent forever as well. It just feels like every year he's won the. It feels like he's won 18 Colemans, to be honest, because he's just goals after goals after goals. And if you ever think of a year that and you can't remember who won the Coleman from that year, it's probably Josh Kennedy.
No, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, like Kennedy, 600 goals, and I mean, and Judd, what's he doing now? He's peddling MLM Bitcoin or whatever he's doing. So, I mean, it's crazy, the longevity of his career. So, and credit to him, 600 goals, and in a league where goals are not a commodity anymore, it's impressive, isn't it? Because you kind of think, will we see a forward kick 600? Like, there's always that talk, will they do 1,000? At the rate they're going, 600's a fair hike nowadays.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And hopefully Harry Mackay and Charlie Kerner can replicate it, double it even.
I reckon Charlie can sneak 1,000 before he's done. I reckon he'll do it for me.
It'd be great. Imagine running onto the G.
I'd take him with me. Kidnap him.
Take him just right. All right. I think unless you have anything else you want to touch on, are we all done? We are. So thank you all very much for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Go the Blues.
Go Blues.